The Tower of London, summer, 1483. Two boys play in the royal apartments. Edward, age 12, Richard, age 9, princes of England, sons of a king, brothers. They've been here for months, waiting. Their father, King Edward IV, died in April. Edward, the older boy, is supposed to be crowned king any day now. That's what they've been told. But the coronation keeps being delayed, postponed, rescheduled, and fewer people are allowed to visit them. The guards change, the servants are replaced, the princes are moved to inner chambers, away from windows, away from the public. By autumn, no one sees them anymore, not playing in the Tower gardens, not at the windows, not anywhere. Questions are whispered in the streets of London. Where are the princes? What happened to Edward V? Where is his brother? No one answers. The Tower keeps its secrets. The boys are never seen again. Their fate becomes England's darkest mystery. For over 500 years, historians, archaeologists, and forensic scientists have tried to answer one question: who killed the princes in the Tower? Because someone did, almost certainly. Two royal boys don't just vanish, not from the most secure fortress in England, not when they're the rightful heirs to the throne.
But who? Their uncle, Richard III, who seized the crown? Henry VII, who defeated Richard and founded the Tudor dynasty? Someone else entirely? The princes disappeared in 1483. In 1674, nearly 200 years later, workers at the Tower found a wooden box. Inside, the skeletons of two children. Are they the princes? Modern forensics says maybe. The evidence is frustratingly incomplete. This is the story of the princes in the Tower, a medieval murder mystery, a political conspiracy, and a tragedy of two children caught in a brutal power struggle they couldn't possibly understand. To understand what happened to the princes, you need to understand the War of the Roses. England, 1455 to 1487. 32 years of civil war, two royal houses, Lancaster and York, fighting for the throne, cousins killing cousins, brothers betraying brothers, battlefields soaked in noble blood. The white rose of York, the red rose of Lancaster, emblems of a kingdom tearing itself apart. 1461, Edward of York wins, becomes King Edward IV, tall, handsome, charismatic, a warrior king. He crushes the Lancastrians, executes rivals, consolidates power. But he makes a crucial mistake. He marries for love. 1464, Edward secretly marries Elizabeth Woodville, a widow, a commoner, beautiful but politically insignificant. His advisors are furious. This isn't a strategic alliance, it's a love match. Weakness. But Elizabeth gives Edward something vital: sons, heirs, the York dynasty secured. 1470, Edward, Prince of Wales, is born, the heir. 1473, Richard, Duke of York, is born, the spare. Two healthy boys. The succession is stable. Edward IV's throne seems secure.
1483, April 9th. King Edward IV dies suddenly. He's only 40 years old. Possible stroke, possible pneumonia. Medieval medicine doesn't know. He's dead. That's what matters. Edward, Prince of Wales, now technically Edward V, is 12 years old, too young to rule alone. He needs a regent, someone to govern until he comes of age. Edward IV's younger brother, Richard, loyal, capable, a proven military commander. In Edward IV's will, Richard is named Lord Protector, guardian of the young king, regent of England. This should be straightforward. Richard protects Edward V. Edward V grows up. Edward V rules. Simple. Richard has ambitions and a claim to the throne himself. And there's a problem with Edward V's legitimacy. A secret, a scandal that's about to explode. April 1483. Young Edward V is at Ludlow Castle when his father dies. Richard, Duke of Gloucester, rides to meet him, ostensibly to escort the new king to London for his coronation. But on the way, Richard arrests Anthony Woodville, Edward V's maternal uncle and guardian. Also arrested, Richard Grey, Edward V's half-brother, both from the Woodville family, Elizabeth Woodville's relatives. Richard claims they were plotting against him, trying to exclude him from power. He's protecting the young king from Woodville manipulation. May 1483. Edward V arrives in London. Richard takes him to the Tower of London. This is normal. English kings traditionally stayed at the Tower before their coronation. It's a royal residence, not just a prison. Edward V is comfortable, waiting for his coronation scheduled for June 22nd. Mid-June, Richard brings Edward's younger brother, 9-year-old Richard, Duke of York, to the Tower as well, ostensibly for company, so Edward won't be lonely, so the brothers can prepare for the coronation together. Now both princes are in the Tower, together, under Richard's control. June 22nd, Coronation Day. Except, there's no coronation.
Motive clear. As long as the princes lived, Richard's throne was insecure. Edward V had loyal supporters. Rebellions were inevitable. The simplest solution? Eliminate the threat. Permanently. Opportunity? Absolute. Richard controlled the Tower. The princes were isolated. No witnesses, no oversight. He could order their deaths, and no one could stop him. Means? Easy. Smothering, stabbing, poison. Medieval murder didn't require sophisticated methods. 2 children couldn't resist armed men. In 1486, 3 years after the princes disappeared, Richard III is dead, defeated by Henry VII at the Battle of Bosworth Field. The Tudors begin writing history. Sir Thomas More's History of King Richard III, 1513 to 1518, accuses Richard directly. Claims he ordered Sir James Tyrrell to murder the boys, smothered in their sleep, buried at the Tower. But More was writing under Henry VIII, a Tudor king, grandson of the man who overthrew Richard III. The Tudors needed Richard to be a monster, a child killer. It legitimized their own claim to the throne. Shakespeare's Richard III, 1592, completes the character assassination. Richard the villain, Richard the hunchback, Richard the murderer. The propaganda becomes cultural fact. Modern historians question this narrative. Richard III had a mixed record, but wasn't the monster Tudor propaganda painted. He was a capable administrator, loyal to his brother Edward IV for decades. Would he murder his own nephews? Maybe. Power corrupts. Throne was at stake, but maybe not. Theory 2, Henry Tudor, later Henry VII, had them killed. Problem: Henry defeated Richard III at Bosworth in August 1485. If the princes were alive in 1485, why didn't Richard produce them to delegitimize Henry's invasion? Counter: maybe Richard didn't kill them, maybe he hid them, kept them alive as insurance. But then Henry VII captured the Tower, found the princes, and killed them himself. Henry VII's claim to the throne was weak, tenuous. The princes, if legitimate, had a better claim than Henry. Even if illegitimate, they were York blood. Supporters could rally to them. Henry VII married Elizabeth of York, the prince's older sister, to unite York and Lancaster. But what if her brothers, legitimate or not, survived and challenged him? None. Entirely speculative. But Henry VII never produced the princes either, never explained what happened to them. Suspicious silence. Theory 3. One or both princes survived, escaped, lived in obscurity. 1490s, two men claimed to be the princes. Lambert Simnel claims to be Edward V. Actually, he claims to be Edward, Earl of Warwick, but the confusion illustrates the chaos. Captured, proven to be an impostor. Perkin Warbeck claims to be Richard, Duke of York, gathers support, invades England, captured 1497, confesses to being an impostor, executed 1499. Tudor sources say yes, absolutely, frauds and pretenders. But some modern historians wonder, what if one was real? What if a prince did escape? Henry VII would obviously claim he was an impostor. The Tudors couldn't admit a York prince survived. Escaping the Tower of London in 1483? Guarded fortress, two young boys, no resources, no allies. Implausible, but not impossible. Theory 4. Natural causes, disease, illness. Medieval childhood was dangerous. Plague, smallpox, dysentery, pneumonia. Children died constantly, even royal children. Maybe the princes simply fell ill and died. Richard III, embarrassed by the timing and the conspiracy theories, concealed the deaths, buried them quietly. Why the secrecy? Why not announce their deaths, hold funerals, unless Richard feared being accused of murder regardless? Guilty conscience or pragmatic recognition that no one would believe natural causes? Theory 5. The truth died with Richard III in 1885, maybe with the princes themselves in 1483. Medieval record-keeping was incomplete. Witnesses are dead. Physical evidence is ambiguous. We'll never know for certain.
1674. The Tower of London. Workers are demolishing a staircase. 10 feet down, they find a wooden box. Inside, the skeletons of 2 children. The location matches Thomas More's account. The ages seem right. 2 children, in the tower, buried secretly. Are these the princes in the tower? King Charles II declares they are, orders them buried in Westminster Abbey. A marble urn, an inscription. Here lie the remains of Edward V and Richard, Duke of York. But no one actually proved it. No forensics, just assumption. 1933, the bones are exhumed and examined by anatomist William Wright and dental surgeon George Northcroft. Their findings? 2 skeletons, ages roughly 10 to 13 and 7 to 11, consistent with the prince's ages in 1483. Both male, probably, hard to determine from juvenile bones. One skeleton shows possible suffocation evidence, though this is disputed. The 1933 examination was limited. No DNA testing, didn't exist, no radiocarbon dating, incomplete records. The bones weren't photographed thoroughly. Conclusion? Possibly the princes, can't rule it out, can't confirm it. Modern forensic scientists want to re-examine the bones. DNA testing could potentially match them to known York descendants. Isotope analysis could determine where they grew up. But the royal family and Westminster Abbey have repeatedly refused permission. The bones remain sealed in the urn. 1674. The Tower of London. Workers are demolishing a staircase. 10 feet down, they find a wooden box. Inside, the skeletons of 2 children. The location matches Thomas More's account. The ages seem right. 2 children, in the tower, buried secretly. Are these the princes in the tower? King Charles II declares they are, orders them buried in Westminster Abbey, a marble urn, an inscription, "Here lie the remains of Edward V and Richard, Duke of York." But no one actually proved it, no forensics, just assumption. In 1933, the bones are exhumed and examined by anatomist William Wright and dental surgeon George Northcroft. Their findings: 2 skeletons, ages roughly 10 to 13 and 7 to 11, consistent with the prince's ages in 1483. Both male, probably, hard to determine from juvenile bones. One skeleton shows possible suffocation evidence, though this is disputed. The 1933 examination was limited. No DNA testing, didn't exist. No radiocarbon dating, incomplete records. The bones weren't photographed thoroughly. Conclusion: possibly the princes. Can't rule it out, can't confirm it. Modern forensic scientists want to re-examine the bones. DNA testing could potentially match them to known York descendants. Isotope analysis could determine where they grew up, but the royal family and Westminster Abbey have repeatedly refused permission. The bones remain sealed in the urn. Possible reasons: religious, disturbing consecrated remains; practical, DNA might not survive 540 years; political, what if they're not the princes? Embarrassing. Ethical, the boys deserve rest. Complicating factor: other children's bones have been found at the tower over the centuries. Medieval burial ground, plague victims. Tower functioned as residence, fortress, and occasionally execution site. The 1674 bones might not be the princes at all. Without DNA, we can't know. The bones in Westminster Abbey might be Edward and Richard, or they might be 2 other medieval children who died and were buried at the tower for unrelated reasons. The mystery continues. 2012. A parking lot in Leicester. Archaeologists find a skeleton, curved spine, battle wounds. DNA matches descendants of Richard III's sister. It's him, Richard III, buried in haste after Bosworth Field, forgotten for 527 years. 2015. Richard III is reburied with honor at Leicester Cathedral, a medieval king finally receiving the dignity he was denied in death. The discovery sparked renewed interest in Richard III. Was he the monster Tudor propaganda painted, or a capable king vilified by his enemies? The Richard III Society argues he was a loyal brother to Edward IV for decades. He was a competent administrator. His seizure of the throne was legally justified if you accept the pre-contract claim. No contemporary evidence directly proves he killed the princes. Tudor historians had every reason to lie. Historians respond, motive, means, and opportunity all point to Richard. The princes disappeared on his watch. He never produced them alive. Occam's razor, simplest explanation, is usually correct. Medieval power politics were brutal. Fratricide wasn't uncommon. So, did Richard III kill the princes in the tower? Most likely, yes. Richard had the strongest motive. He controlled the tower. The princes disappeared while in his custody. He never explained what happened to them. Either he ordered their murder directly, or created conditions where subordinates took initiative, knowing Richard needed the problem solved. But we don't have proof. No confession, no contemporary eyewitness, no confirmed remains, just circumstantial evidence and Tudor-era accusations written by his enemies. And Henry VIII's silence is suspicious. If he'd found the princes alive and killed them, of course he'd stay silent. If he'd found them already dead, why not expose Richard's crime? Unless he couldn't prove it, or unless he was complicit somehow.
Whoever killed them, the real tragedy is this: 2 children, Edward, 12, Richard, 9, pawns in a political game they didn't create and couldn't control. Edward didn't ask to be king. Richard didn't ask to be a threat. They were born royal. In the War of the Roses, that was a death sentence. Every royal child since has lived with their shadow: the princes who vanished, the boys who were murdered for being inconvenient, a cautionary tale about power and innocence. The Tower of London still stands. Tourists walk where the princes once played. 2 small skeletons rest in Westminster Abbey under an urn that may or may not contain their bones. And the question lingers: who killed the princes in the tower? Richard III? Almost certainly, but we'll never know for sure. The princes in the tower: Edward V, age 12, Richard, Duke of York, age 9, disappeared summer 1483, presumed murdered. Mystery unsolved. England's darkest secret. 5 centuries later, still no answer.